The waves crash softly against the Dorset cliffs, the breeze carrying salt and silence in equal measure. At first glance, the mansion perched above Lime Bay looks like the home of a retired novelist or an aging aristocrat. But behind those leaded glass windows lives a voice that once roared across continents. A man who once stood in front of hundreds of thousands and shook the heavens with a scream. His name is Ian Gillan, and this is where the storm finally found its calm. Far from the smoke machines and Marshall stacks, Gillan has carved out a new stage for himself. One built not of sound, but of stillness. Tucked inside an ultra-private oceanfront estate, this is not just a house. It's a sanctuary, a place where the man behind Smoke on the Water now watches mist roll in from the English Channel, sipping tea where once he downed whiskey backstage. But how did a titan of hard rock end up in this corner of southern England, surrounded by magnolia trees and the slow rhythm of tides? What does life look like for a man who once defined an era of volume and velocity? Let's step inside the gates, into the mansion, the music, the memories. Standing tall on a cliffside near Lyme Regis, Ian Gillan's home isn't just a property, it's a statement. Priced at approximately $5.4 million, this oceanfront masterpiece blends architectural poetry with the rugged soul of southern England's coastline. It's the kind of place you might imagine for a reclusive poet or a world-weary conductor, but it belongs to one of rock's most enduring voices. From the outside, the house commands respect. Wrapped entirely in hand-laid cedar shingles, the structure feels both weathered and regal, like it's always belonged to the landscape. The gracefully flared roofline curves outward like a conductor's baton, frozen mid-motion, lending the house a sense of kinetic calm. The three-story layout unfolds from a grand entrance hall, where soaring ceilings immediately announce that this is no ordinary coastal home. Light floods through vast, arched, leaded glass windows, casting prismatic shadows across wooden floors and antique rugs. In the formal living room and family room, two grand stone fireplaces hold court, warm, commanding, and quietly noble. But the crown jewel? It's the billiard room. Step into this chamber and you step into another century. The coffered ceiling, made of quarter-sawn white oak, has the kind of detail you'd find in a European palace. Custom cabinetry, fitted with ornate brass handles, lines the walls like books in an old-world library. The emerald green marble fireplace glows beneath classic, period-accurate light fixtures, giving the room the feel of a gentleman's club wrapped in rock and roll charm. And then comes the dining room, a place where stories are surely shared as often as meals. It's framed by a row of massive windows, each one looking out over a garden so lush, it might have been lifted from a Monet canvas. An original solid white oak dining table anchors the room, long, heavy, timeless. Here, among the flicker of candlelight and the creak of old wood, you can imagine the silence between verses, the pause between tours. But this isn't just a historic home frozen in time. Gillan has lovingly brought the structure into the present. The entire roof has been re-engineered to match its original profile. Every window and door has been meticulously restored. The house breathes through a 6-zone HVAC system, whispers with a modern electrical network, and glows with sensor-activated outdoor lighting that shifts with the sun. It's both museum and machine, ancient soul, modern function. And while its previous owner was oil tycoon Thomas Gilcrease, the house has never worn its stories more comfortably than it does now, under the care of a man who once traveled the world screaming into the chaos, and now listens to the quiet hum of the sea. But for Ian Gillan, a home isn't defined just by stone and timber. It's also shaped by the hearts he's helped, the lives he's lifted. Because beyond the studio, beyond the mansion, there is a legacy of giving. If you ask Ian Gillan what truly matters beyond music, his answer is surprisingly simple: people. While his legacy in rock history is undeniable, there's a quieter, deeper legacy that often escapes the spotlight. His work in philanthropy, most notably in a place far from the concert halls of London or Los Angeles, Armenia. It all began in 1988 when a catastrophic earthquake struck northern Armenia, flattening cities like Spytak and Gyumri and claiming tens of thousands of lives. The world watched in horror, but Gillan did more than watch. In 1980, he became a founding member of Rock Aid Armenia, a supergroup assembled to raise funds for relief efforts. Alongside fellow legends like Brian May, David Gilmour, Tony Iommi, and Bruce Dickinson, he re-recorded the Deep Purple classic Smoke on the Water, this time for a cause far greater than any chart ranking. But Gillan's connection to Armenia wasn't a one-off. It grew deeper over time. In 2009, he returned to the country with Tony Iommi to witness the aftermath of the quake firsthand. 2 decades later, parts of Gyumri were still in ruins. They visited a crumbling music school where children tried to practice inside dilapidated huts with barely functioning instruments. For a man whose life was built on the foundation of melody, it struck a nerve. From that moment, Gillan and Iommi formed Who Cares, a charity music project with a singular mission: rebuild the school. The result was the release of the single Out of My Mind, Holy Water, in 2011. Funds from the project helped complete the construction of the Octet Music School, which officially reopened in 2013, equipped with modern facilities and a future for generations of Armenian musicians. The Armenian government recognized his efforts by awarding him the Order of Honor, a rare distinction for a foreign artist. But for Gillan, it was never about medals or praise. It was about resonance. As he once said, "Armenia is my spiritual motherland." His charity didn't stop there. In 2010, he headlined 2 major benefit concerts in Yerevan, accompanied by the Armenian Philharmonic Orchestra, bridging East and West, heavy metal and classical, all in the name of healing. Outside of Armenia, Gillan has also lent his name and voice to environmental and wildlife causes. He contributed to charity albums supporting the Born Free Foundation, which works to protect endangered animals across the globe. And, in true British fashion, he even participated in celebrity football matches to raise money for local communities, trading his mic for a ball just for the joy of giving back. What makes Gillan's philanthropy so powerful isn't just the scale, it's the sincerity. He doesn't advertise his giving, doesn't perform it for headlines. He simply shows up, quietly, consistently, wholeheartedly. To understand where this deep empathy comes from, we have to go back to the beginning, before fame, before fortune, back to the small, music-filled home in post-war England where it all began. Ian Gillan was born at the Chiswick Maternity Hospital in Middlesex, England, just as the world was emerging from the shadows of World War II. London was still healing, its skyline scarred, its streets rebuilding. But inside the Gillan household, there was always music. Not the loud electric kind that would one day define his name, but the delicate classical notes that floated from a piano in the corner of the room. His father, Bill, was a practical man from Govan, Glasgow, who had dropped out of school at 13 and found work as a storeman in a London factory. He was tough, honest, and hardworking, the type of man who measured success not by applause, but by whether you showed up and got the job done. That work ethic would later shape Ian's relentless drive on stage and in the studio. His mother, Audrey, was something else entirely. She was the eldest of 4 siblings and came from a family steeped in music. Her own father, Ian's grandfather, was an amateur opera singer and pianist, the kind who might have performed for free just for the joy of the art. Audrey didn't pursue music professionally, but the love of it flowed through her fingers whenever she sat at the piano. One of Gillan's earliest memories, burned into his young imagination, was watching his mother play Mozart's Rondo alla Turca on that upright piano. To him, it wasn't just a piece of music, it was magic. The swirl of melodies, the rhythm, the grace, it stirred something inside him that words couldn't explain. Only echo. He grew up alongside his older sister Pauline, born in 1948. Their life was modest. They didn't have wealth or connections, but they had warmth, structure, and a home filled with song. Those early years were shaped not just by melody, but by contrast. A father grounded in discipline, a mother rooted in beauty. Together, they gave Gillan both the stability and the spark that would power him through the tumultuous world of rock and roll. He wasn't born into stardom. There was no silver spoon, no backstage pass waiting. Just a boy, a piano, and the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, his voice could one day find the world. And find the world it did. From that small home in Middlesex, Gillan would step into a journey that would take him from smoky pubs to global arenas, From struggling bands to rock immortality. The rise was anything but easy, but it was unforgettable. Ian Gillan's journey to rock stardom wasn't meteoric. It was built one gritty pub gig at a time, one band after another, forged in the fires of persistence and pure vocal power. He didn't start with a record deal, he started with a dream and a microphone. His first band bore a name as quirky as it was ambitious: Garth Rocket and the Moonshiners. It was the early 1960s, and Gillan was cutting his teeth in small clubs, learning not just how to sing, but how to command a room. From there, he joined Ronnie and the High Tones, which soon evolved into the Javelins, a rock and roll cover band where Gillan's voice began to catch serious attention. But like many young bands of the era, the Javelins burned bright and fast, disbanding in 1964. Gillan didn't stop. He joined Wainwright's Gentlemen, a soul group where he fine-tuned his range. And then, in 1965, came his first real break, Episode 6. With this band, he recorded 9 singles, none of which cracked the UK charts. But the experience was invaluable. He learned studio work, arrangement, harmonies, and most importantly, he met Roger Glover, a bassist who would become both collaborator and lifelong ally. In June 1969, fate intervened. After watching Episode 6 perform in a pub, Ritchie Blackmore, John Lord, and Ian Pace of Deep Purple were sold. They invited Gillan and Glover to join their band. And just like that, history began to write itself. His first album with Deep Purple in Rock, 1970, was a sonic sledgehammer. Gillan's operatic wails and shrieking highs gave the band a new edge. Hits followed quickly: Fireball, 1971, Machine Head, 1972, Home to the Immortal, Smoke on the Water, and Who Do We Think We Are, 1973. These records didn't just top charts, they rewrote the rulebook for hard rock. But with success came pressure. The endless tours, interviews, studio sessions, it all began to wear on Gillan. By 1971, he was drinking heavily, and his relationship with bandmates, especially Blackmore, grew tense. Then came the breaking point. In November of that year, while on tour in Chicago, Gillan collapsed, diagnosed with hepatitis. The band canceled the rest of the US tour. By mid-1973, Gillan walked away from Deep Purple, burnt out and disillusioned. But if rock had taught him anything, it was how to rise again. In 1975, he formed the Ian Gillan Band, experimenting with jazz-rock fusion. Albums like Child in Time and Clear Air Turbulence showcased a different, more exploratory side of his artistry. Though not massive commercial hits, they solidified Gillan as a fearless creative force. Then came a harder edge. The band Gillan, launched in 1978, saw him return to his heavy rock roots. With records like Mr. Universe, Glory Road, and Magic, he surged back into the charts, thrilling fans old and new. In a twist few saw coming, Gillan joined Black Sabbath in 1983, replacing none other than Ronnie James Dio. The resulting album, Born Again, was dark, aggressive, and reached number 4 in the UK. Though the collaboration didn't last long, just 2 North American tours, it showed the world that Gillan's voice could stretch into even the darkest corners of metal. Then came the ultimate encore. In 1984, Deep Purple reunited. Perfect Strangers was more than a comeback, it was a resurrection. They followed it with the House of Blue Light, 1987, and a worldwide tour. But old tensions resurfaced, and by 1989, Gillan was fired after another fallout with Blackmore. He returned again in '92, and from that point on, he became the enduring voice of Deep Purple's modern era. Albums like Perpendicular, 1996, Bananas, 2003, Now What, 2013, and Whoosh, 2020, prove that the fire still burned. In parallel, Gillan continued a steady solo career, releasing introspective and experimental works like Naked Thunder, Toolbox, One Eye to Morocco, and Gillan's Inn. Each one was a snapshot of a man still searching, still creating, still pushing the boundaries of what his voice could do. After more than half a century on stage, in the studio, and in the hearts of millions, Ian Gillan's net worth in this year is estimated to sit comfortably between $50 and $60 million. It's a figure that reflects not just commercial success, but also consistency, longevity, and smart choices along the way. The bulk of his wealth comes unsurprisingly from his time with Deep Purple. The band has sold over 100 million records worldwide, with albums like Machine Head, In Rock, and Perfect Strangers continuing to generate royalties decades after their release. Songs such as Smoke on the Water and Highway Star aren't just hits, they're anthems, embedded in film soundtracks, commercials, and every teenager's first guitar lesson. Gillan has also enjoyed a profitable solo career, with multiple studio and live albums released under his name, and through projects like Gillan, Ian Gillan Band, and Who Cares. Each phase of his career came with its own touring cycle, merchandise, publishing rights, and loyal fan base. But the voice alone didn't build the fortune. Gillan is also known for being relatively financially disciplined compared to some of his rock and roll peers. Rather than chasing opulence for the sake of it, he invested in real estate, including his luxurious oceanfront mansion in Lyme Regis and a second home in southern Portugal. Both properties not just as living spaces, but as appreciating assets. Beyond earnings from performances and albums, Gillan has secured income through songwriting royalties, collaborations, and documentary features, including his role as narrator in the internationally acclaimed Chopin documentary in 2010. As someone whose voice is as iconic spoken as it is sung, this opened a unique lane of income in broadcasting and narration. And let's not forget the touring years, decades on the road with Deep Purple, from Tokyo to Buenos Aires, brought in tens of millions in ticket sales. Even in his 70s, Gillan continued to tour globally, drawing massive crowds and proving that his voice and his brand remain not just relevant, but revered. Beneath the stage persona, behind the whirlwind tours and platinum records, Ian Gillan's truest story is quietly tucked away in his private life. A life that, while far removed from the chaos of rock stardom, is marked by enduring love, profound loss, and a steadfast devotion to the things that truly matter. In 1984, at the height of his second major act with Deep Purple, Gillan married the love of his life, Braun, a woman who had been his partner long before the arenas, long before the accolades. Their bond wasn't one built in the tabloids. It was private, strong, and deeply affectionate. So much so that in 1983, during his brief tenure with Black Sabbath, Gillan dedicated a song to her, Keep It Warm, a tender track tucked into an otherwise heavy metal album, showing the soft heart beneath the gravelly roar. Their marriage stood the test of time for nearly 4 decades, a rarity in the world of celebrity. They renewed their vows twice, each time with the same sincerity as the first. But in November 2022, tragedy struck. Braun passed away, leaving behind a silence in Gillan's life no microphone could fill. It was a devastating loss for a man whose greatest songs were often inspired by love, loss, and longing. Together they had a daughter, Grace Gillan. Like her father, she inherited a passion for music and forged her own path as a singer in the band Papa Legal. Grace never tried to walk in Ian's shadow. She carved her own style, her own voice. But in her presence and creativity, Gillan found echoes of his past and glimpses of the future. Today, he splits his time between his Lyme Regis mansion and a second residence in southern Portugal, where the air is warm and the pace is forgiving. These days, you're more likely to find him walking through magnolia-lined gardens or sipping quietly at a local cafe than performing pyrotechnic solos. But his soul remains lit by music. Offstage, Gillan is a passionate supporter of Queen's Park Rangers, a football club he stood by through ups and downs. He also follows cricket, often speaking about the game with the kind of strategic insight you'd expect from someone who's spent decades navigating the highs and lows of a rock career. And of course, there's his sense of humor, a dry, cheeky wit that's followed him through the years. One running joke that's persisted throughout his career is the constant misspelling of his surname as Gillian. Instead of frustration, he turned it into a lyric. In MTV, a track from Deep Purple's Rapture of the Deep, 2005, he winks at the mix-up with the line, Mr. Grover and Mr. Gillian. It's classic Gillan, self-aware, a little sarcastic, and always in tune with the absurdity of fame. Despite everything, the tours, the fame, the fortune, Ian Gillan has managed to remain grounded, not just as a musician, but as a man who has lived with purpose, sung with soul, and loved deeply, a man who understands that sometimes the quietest rooms hold the loudest memories. Ian Gillan's life isn't just a rock biography, it's a symphony, a score written over 8 decades, each chapter marked by a different movement. The soft chords of childhood, the explosive crescendos of Deep Purple, the discord and redemption of reinvention, and now a coda of calm near the sea. His home in Lyme Regis is more than just a luxurious retreat. It's a monument to survival, a space where the man who once howled into stadium lights now listens to the rhythm of waves and the distant memories of music halls long gone. His voice, once a weapon of sonic power, still echoes, not just through vinyl and speakers, but through the causes he's championed, the lives he's touched, the family he's loved. From Armenian school children given a second chance at music, to his daughter Grace carrying the torch in her own voice, Ian Gillan's legacy is far more than noise. It's nurture, it's resilience, it's depth. Even as the world shifts into digital algorithms and auto-tuned choruses, Gillan's story reminds us that authenticity still matters, that a voice born in the warmth of a family piano can one day roar through the world and return home with grace. So as you step away from this video, know this: the rock may fade, but the resonance never dies. If this story moved you, inspired you, or made you revisit an old Deep Purple track with new ears, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Share this video with fellow music lovers and let us know in the comments, what's your favorite Ian Gillan moment? And for more stories of iconic voices, timeless homes, and the lives behind the legends, stay with us right here, because some legends don't just play music, they become music.